y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. We are not live on Millions tonight, and that is 100% my fault. When we shifted the recording today, I did not adjust the settings there, so that's my bad. That's on me. I'll take a whole lot of responsibility on that one. But we are still excited to bring you tonight's episode. Sorry about that. Decided to choke on air for a second. But before we get to the rest of the show, we want to remind you guys about the insane promotion going on right now through BetUS. If you go to any of the links that we have posted, you will get a 125% bonus and 30 risk-free bets. Keep making some money with us today because we are both well into the black. And if you listen to both of us, I mean, you'd have enough money to come to some games and hang out with me, you know.
Yeah.
So on tonight's episode, we are getting into some UAB Georgia talk, along with some other noteworthy week. Are we
Four.
already in week 5 or is this
No,
week
no,
4?
it's no, it's four.
Okay,
I mistyped that.
I
I'm
was about.
I'm so sorry that don't want to wish the season away already.
You were about to catch me crying on air at week 5 already, but week 4. This is week 4 that we're in. But we actually have a really cool guest on to talk about the biggest game of the week. Cody Goodwin is going to join us to talk some Alabama with us. He covers Alabama for 247 and CBS Sports. But before we get into that, what are you drinking?
I just have some water. It's been a long day. We were recording a little bit later than we what we would typically do because my son's football practice got out late. So just water. And I think we have another illness going around the house too. So I'm trying to
Oh no.
rehydrate. I think daycare that my daughter's at, she's 8 months old. Apparently has a influx of a pink eye, and then when she got home today, her eye was like a lot more watery. So I may be staying home tomorrow. We'll see.
That's awful.
Yeah, I had, you know what, already a tangent, kind of. At the last school I worked at, there was 3 consecutive years where I got pink eye, same eye, all that. My fault for rubbing my eyes all the time, or someone farting in my face when I'm sleeping, but it is. How about you?
God, dude, you're talking people into being teachers left and right here.
You know what? It's also my fault. I'm high-fiving kids, shaking their hands, show them how to do a firm handshake, try to break their knuckles and stuff like that, and then, wipe my eyes, and then, I look like what Martin in that scene from, his show where he's all swollen from the boxing match that he was in. So,
I'm I'm actually drinking a little bit tonight for the first time in a couple weeks. Put a little Evan Williams 100 proof in some Diet Coke that I got. So
hell yeah.
just a little bit. Not planning on getting too lit tonight. May go surf in the morning, which means I will have to be up at 6 ish. So don't wanna be too hammered. You know what I mean?
How how was the swell last week when you went? I know we
Oh,
had a
dude,
tropical storm
the
off the
it
coast.
because the storm was north of us. It because the storm was north, it was blowing wind from the wrong direction, so the
Oh,
waves were choppy. I mean, don't be wrong, I sat out there for like 20 or 30 minutes, and there was probably 10, 15 people out there with me, and it, like, nobody got a wave. The
oh,
wind was killing the storm swell. It kind of sucked.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Whack.
yeah, but yeah, I did get to do something that I never got to do in Atlanta, and that is sit on a surfboard with 80-degree weather and watch the sunrise over the ocean. So could be worse.
You don't want to go on like Lake Lanier and risk it and do
Oh,
that.
dude, the demons will pull me into the bottom of Lake Lanier if I
Mhm.
try and get on a surfboard in that thing.
It's funny every time that someone dies in Lake Lanier, I get like 2 or 3 texts from like family that are like out of town. They'd even know about Lake Lanier. It's like, oh, don't go to Lake Lanier. I'm like, wasn't planning on it.
No, no.
Never. Even when we live 20, 30 minutes away from it, never went, never will.
I actually went to Lake Lanier quite a bit growing up. I had family
Hmm.
that worked there, so I used to get into the water park for free.
Oh shit.
So I used to spend at least like one day a week every summer at Lake Lanier Water Park.
Like the was it Margaritaville at that point? R.I.P.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
it wasn't Margaritaville at
Oh,
then, but where it's at. Yeah, I used to go literally once, twice a week for free,
damn.
all like for 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
But when you're in a water park, you don't really give shit about a lake.
Yeah, that's fair. We used to when we lived up that way. We had for like 4 or 5 years. We had season passes to Six Flags, and I mean, we live right by Whitewater over there in Marietta. I mean, and we got the food deal and all that. So
Yeah,
basically, like all summer, we'd go 3 or 4 days a week and like get all our meals there. And it's all paid for. It was not the healthiest thing to do, but it saved us a crap ton of money, especially with all the the kids and stuff. So
yeah.
there's a reason why they made it even more expensive because
You
people like us
know,
took advantage.
you know what I would really like to be drinking right now?
I have an idea.
It is the new, brand new from ASW Hunker Vodka. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the picture. I just popped it up in between us here. Brand new, super cool what they got going on. They've actually partnered with the Classic City Collective. This is the official NIL vodka of the University of Georgia. Pictures are awesome, and something that might even be cooler is that we are doing a giveaway once again with ASW. We are giving away a 1.75 liter handle of Hunker vodka this month. I think what we're going to do, not set in stone yet, check our social media, but we're going to put out a post, like the post, comment with one friend in the post, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and we'll be giving it away.
A handle. I was saying that and I was muted.
Handle.
Handle. You
A
can carry it with you easily. The alcoholic on the go.
No, if you know me outside of the show, you know I'm not a big vodka guy. I will be getting some of this.
Just for the
First,
bottle is dope.
the bottle's awesome. But
Yeah.
second, I've had a little bit of ASW's other clear liquor. They have phenomenal gin. I just everything they put out's top quality. As we talked about all last season, it was started by some alumni from the University of Georgia, diehard football fans. It is currently run by diehard dog fans. If you are in the market for any type of liquor, I mean, they make it can't be Scotch because it's made in America, but they make Scotch type whiskey. They make Irish type whiskey. They make phenomenal bourbon and American whiskey, phenomenal rye, phenomenal gin, and now they've got some Hunker vodka. So, highly, highly, highly recommend you guys go out and get yourself some ASW anything today. But if you don't go out and get something today, follow what we're telling you to do in this post, and you could potentially win yourself a handle
Handle.
of Hunker vodka.
Do it. It's coming out soon. So be on the lookout for that across the socials. So if you want some liquor, make sure it's made by some dogs, not some cats. Want some dogs.
Word. I don't really know how to respond to that. Word was kind of awkward.
Nope.
I don't know what I'm doing. I had a Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands moment, but it was I don't know what to do with my words. Um,
I don't know. We've been saying it a lot at with the football team at school. So we want some dogs. We don't want we got a team full of cats. We want some dogs. So
um, I will apologize if you can hear Nemo barking in the background. He is being very loud. I'm not sure if you can, but
I can't, for what it's worth.
okay.
I cannot.
Nemo, he's our golden lab mix, and he is too smart to be a dog. Um, so whenever there's something going on that he doesn't like, he voluntarily decides to be an asshole. It's actually great.
Hmm.
They say like how you are as a kid comes back to you when you're an adult, when you have kids. I feel like I got it with the dogs.
I mean, we're yeah. I can attest to that absolutely, 100%.
Oh, all
without
right.
doubt. Ain't no way around it.
All right. While we're waiting for Cody to join us here, this is the week that has the most ranked matchups throughout the season so far, right?
Hmm.
What game are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, okay, so we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but Ohio State Notre Dame in the North's equivalent of I wish a meteor would hit it and just wipe everybody out. But um,
Sam Hartman is the only reason that I don't
yeah.
wish that.
Hmm.
Sam Hartman,
Yeah.
he got that dog in him. They
He
took out a rib and put a dog there.
it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to it. It's in South Bend. It's gonna be at night. Notre Dame's wearing those god awful green uniforms. I'm really my biggest thing is I'm just ready for Ohio State to be exposed, and like we'll get it more into it later on, but I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
So I think the game I'm looking forward to the most is Florida State at Clemson.
Hmm.
And I say that, I mean, if you guys know me outside of the show, you know that Thursdays I play disc golf with a local group of guys. Somehow, some way, about half of them are Clemson fans.
Ew.
They're all great people, so
Hmm.
is what it
Yeah.
is.
I can't lie. I think every single Clemson fan I know is awesome. So I take that back.
I know a couple just ridiculous ones, but that's beside the point.
Hmm.
Um, but I was talking to them today, and they were all just like, "Man, I don't even know why Florida State's favored in this game. Clemson's going to run away with it. Have you ever seen somebody
Wow.
win in Death Valley? It's like,
Uh,
yeah, I saw a mediocre South Carolina team do it 10 minutes
what?
ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Didn't Pitt do it? Like an unranked Pitt team do it a while back too?
Yes, an unranked
Yeah.
Pitt team did it. There was another unranked team that did it a couple years before that, and I don't remember who it was.
Hmm.
But beside the point, it's just like I feel like a lot of people are still living in the fantasy land that Dabo is a top three coach in the country, um, and for what it's worth, if you if Clemson wins, I will come on the show Sunday night and apologize to Dabo Sweeney.
Hmm.
I'll do it.
God,
Hold me
that
to
would
it.
be it'll be tough. I think I saw a stat earlier that I think Kate Klubnik he I think he faced pressure on what it was at least 40% of all his dropbacks, and Florida State gets after it as well. So ooh,
And he's
I think
thrown
it could be
two pick
bad.
sixes in 3 games.
Hmm. It could be
That
bad.
it,
Yeah.
it's one of those games where it is either like a 1 to 3 point game or an absolute blowout.
Hmm.
And I don't really think there's in between. Like I don't think this is a one touchdown, two possession. I I just I feel like it's either close or just an absolute demolition derby.
Yeah. I'm
But
hoping so. I'm hoping this weekend. I think this weekend's gonna be awesome. And again, we'll get into all that, but
have you
best weekend so
um
far.
have you checked with Cody to see if he's still good
Um,
or made sure he got the email?
let me double check. I haven't gotten any other DMs from him
Okay.
since we started. Let me check real quick and see if I can grab my phone. But I have my email up that has the alerts on it. So give me 1 second. Oh, actually no. Oh yeah, let me check. Hold on.
All right, we're gonna pause, guys.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, so now we have Cody Goodwin, and I pronounced that correct, right?
You got it.
Okay. With how much we talk trash about CBS not pronounce anybody's names correct, we do our best to pronounce things correctly.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always down to talk college football, especially this season. It's shaping up to be a weird one.
For sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's absolutely wild so far. So Cody, you cover Alabama for 247 and CBS Sports, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how did you get into that?
Dumb luck. So I'm originally from Kansas City, um, born and raised in the Midwest, like Big Ten, Big 12 country my entire life. Actually went to school at the University of Iowa. They have a world class English program, so I knew that when I wanted to get into sports journalism, I had to learn how to write, and so I took that route as opposed to like a journalism route. Ended up sticking around the state of Iowa for about a decade. Went to school there. Ended up working for the Des Moines Register, where I covered wrestling up until this past year, and just kind of who you know, not what you know, linked me up with the job at Bama 247. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with Bama Online. That was 247's
Mhm.
Alabama website for a long time. They moved over to On Three, so they kind of built this brand new Alabama team, and I guess I nailed the interview because here we are.
Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and get into some of the negative stuff first. I like to get that out of the way to start, then we get into the more positive stuff. So first off, why was Jalen Milroe benched for the USF game in favor of Buckner, and then eventually Ty Simpson coming in to quote unquote save the day?
So I'm sure you guys pretty well aware. The 3-man quarterback battle throughout the summer and then fall camp, right? Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner, Jalen Milroe. Um, from what we've been able to glean over the last week or so, Saban promised all of them an equal opportunity to play at some point this season. So when are you going to basically hash out a quarterback battle? Probably during the cupcake games, right? Because Alabama just doesn't lose to food.
Mhm.
So Milroe gets the start just based on experience against Middle Tennessee. Ends up scoring 42 points. What's that? 6 touchdowns over the course of 8 drives, I think was the math on there. Led 28-0 at half, scored 2 more in the third quarter. Okay, we've seen enough of Jalen Milroe. Buckner and Simpson both played 2 drives each in that game, just not really a ton to kind of, okay, how do these guys operate the offense?
Mhm.
Um, so you go to the Texas game. Um, Milroe again gets the start because of the performance against Middle Tennessee. Plays fine mostly. Obviously, the 2 costly interceptions were costly, but he makes a handful of plays with his legs and some deep passes. And I mean, hey, the margin for error was thin, but Alabama had a 16-13 lead late in the third quarter. Obviously, we all know what happens.
Mhm.
Texas scores, second pick. Texas scores again. That more or less iced it. Okay, so then you go to South Florida. I guess at some point last week before the South Florida game, Saban tells Milroe, "Hey, we are going to play Buckner and Simpson. We want to get these guys a fair opportunity to show what they can do." Apparently, Milroe did not react the best way. I don't know exactly what was said or how specifically he reacted, but Saban and the staff did not like it. So they basically said, "All right, you're benched. If you want to be the leader of this team, we got to see a little bit more out of you." So that leads to last week's game, which was the clunker of all clunkers, at least by Alabama standards. Milroe does not play, but we see him lead the team out of the tunnel, lead them through pregame stretching. He's very visibly excited as Simpson kind of figures some things out in the second half of that game. Alabama ultimately wins 17-3, which brings us to Monday, where Saban says Milroe's our guy moving forward. He liked what he saw out of that. That's kind of basically what happened, just kind of off the dome, the recap. I don't know if there's any lingering questions after that, but that's kind of basically what we were able to piece together.
No, I mean I think that actually answers our next question, which was just going to be why did Milroe not get put in when the game was close? But I mean it makes sense
Yeah.
with how you
Mhm.
explained it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he effectively was put in timeout. That's the short version.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he was out there. I think it was with Ty Simpson. There was a video afterward. I mean, he was like jumping up and down, and they were like, I mean, yeah, like you talked about, he was, super excited for, the successes that he had out there. So I mean, that was good to see because, I mean, just kind of, as a casual observer, we didn't hear anything about the practice stuff with Milrose. So was really confusing. Yeah, it definitely makes sense that he's going to be the starter going forward from everything that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most productive quarterback. I've alternated between unproductive and fruitless when it comes to Tyler Buckner's 5 drives. I mean, it was just bad, right? He was skipping passes. Wasn't a whole lot going in the run game. He was able to scramble a little bit because Ty Simpson took all the sacks, but Ty Simpson looked a little bit better. The more I rewatch the game, the more I'm like, man, if Alabama's offensive line had been playing better, I could see them maybe turning to him for the rest of the season. But given the offensive line struggles and given, how dangerous Milroe is with his feet, makes a lot of sense to have a guy like that back there in case plays break down. He's able to probably make something out of nothing a little bit more than Ty Simpson is. So that leads us into week 4.
Yep.
So going into a little bit of off-season stuff here, I mean, there was a picture of Nick Saban smiling as he walked away from the podium. There were the J.C. Latham quotes from SEC media days. There was all the talk about Alabama reverting to the joyless murder ball of the Derrick Henry era. How do you think? How do you think the team feels about how the season's gone so far?
There's definitely some frustration, right? Like and a lot of it, we've been writing about the offensive line each of the last 2 weeks because, 12 sacks allowed through the first 3 weeks, 10 combined over the last 2 weeks. Like, it just hasn't been good. And a lot of that's us kind of holding them accountable, right? Because like you mentioned, J.C. Latham was very adamant about, the offensive line playing better, but really the team as a whole playing better. I think it was Tyler Booker as well through fall camp was like, we want to be physically dominant, make people quit. They haven't really been doing that at all. And I'm sure you guys know that when it comes to offense at any level of football, if the offensive line's not in a good spot, the whole operation goes south, right? And especially so at the collegiate level. And I think we saw a lot of that in the Texas game. And South Florida was able to exploit a lot of stuff with their speed and just constantly bringing pressure in that game as well. So, that's kind of where it starts. It's where a lot of the frustration starts, because they did what they were supposed to do against Middle Tennessee. I think the Texas loss is frustrating because it's at home. It's against a team that you beat the year before. It makes the already small margin for error even slimmer for the rest of the season, right? Because no 2-loss team has ever made the college football playoffs. So now you're staring down, what basically needs to be a perfect run through the SEC. And how often does that happen, right? Especially when, you lose Bryce Young, you lose a lot of guys out of the front 7. So they're inexperienced at certain spots. So, you can tell there's a little bit of frustration with how they've started. You can tell there's a little bit of, not so much backs against the wall, but I think they understand that there's a lot of pressure on them going forward, especially this coming weekend, right? Because Ole Miss, that's Lane Kiffin coming back to Tuscaloosa. That's Pete Golding coming back to Tuscaloosa, probably licking his chops after seeing what South Florida did last week. Ole Miss's offense, they don't have all their weapons fully healthy yet, and still they're hanging 50 points a game on guys. They went on the road at a really good Tulane team and put damn near 40 points on them. So it's a good team that's coming to Tuscaloosa, right? And I think they understand that, one, they haven't played well, but two, if there's a week to figure some things out and put their best performance out there, now's the time. If they put out a good performance against Ole Miss, I think that'll quiet a lot of the noise that's kind of surrounding the program right now.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is what's the overall headspace or vibe that the fan base is in right now? Because obviously Alabama's not used to losing an out of conference game, especially season. So where are they at this point in the year?
Well, the sky fell after the Texas loss naturally, and I don't know that we were able to pick up the pieces in enough time before the South Florida game. So now it's just fire this person, fire that person. We suck. Put the true freshman in at quarterback. Let's just empty the bench. Typical. Yeah, like you said, this is a fan base that's not used to losing. They're not used to piss poor performances, and we've gotten both of those in back-to-back weeks. So they're, a little on edge. I think the more rational fans kind of understand that, hey, one, it's not always going to be an A+ performance every time out. Two, I think a lot of them have come around to the idea that Texas team's pretty good. good enough that, they might be able to navigate all the Big 12 landmines and probably get to the college football playoff this year if they continue to put out an A performance in the games that they need to. But I think they understand that, like, hey, like this team, because they don't have like a Bryce Young and they don't have a Will Anderson on the other side of the ball, the ceiling is a little bit lower, but also, like, because of some of the other miscues that they've seen through the first few weeks, the floor is a lot lower too. So I think, they kind of understand that, like, hey, like, they need to clean a lot of things up and a lot of things need to go their way in certain games if they want to get to where they want to go. I'm not outright just saying they won't win it or do anything of significance this season, because I think it's still too early to tell. But based on what we've seen so far, the version of Alabama that we've seen thus far, probably time to adjust your expectations on where you think they might go until they show you otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a question that wasn't necessarily in the outline, but it's an idea that I've been kind of kicking around in my head for a couple of weeks. What is your thought about this season kind of potentially being the culmination of what the transfer portal has made possible? Because a lot of those guys that did big things for both Texas and USF last week were transfer guys. I mean, Colorado, Ole Miss, LSU. I mean, these teams have essentially built their best players from the transfer portal. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think you look across college football. Like, I don't know that this is solely an SEC thing. And you made examples with Colorado, USF. You could look at Florida State. That's a team that's done really, really well in the transfer portal. The transfer portal to me is kind of, almost leveled the playing field, right? Like, you look at the SEC, for example. Like, not a ton of star power at quarterback when compared to, say, the Pac-12. And a lot of those Pac-12 quarterbacks got there through the portal. So that's just one example. 247 Sports, what we do, I shouldn't say we, the recruiting experts at 247 Sports, they put together a team talent composite ranking, where they basically, look at everybody's roster, compile how many 3, 4, and 5-star athletes there are, and it spits out a number that tells you in theory how talented your team is. And it's a pretty good indicator on which teams are going to be good in a given year, because I think in the playoff era, only 4 teams outside of the top 20 of the 247 team composite has made the playoff, right? So, like, it's a pretty good indicator. This year, there's more parity in the top 25 than there's been in any year that they've done this team talent composite, like this, just based on sheer numbers of where all these guys landed. It's not a perfect science, right? Because it only takes into account their high school, recruiting ranking. So it doesn't take into account development or like the 2 stars that turned into superstars, right? But like that kind of shows you that there is a lot more parity across the board. There's a lot more talent spread out across all these other teams, right? I mean, look at, Notre Dame and Ohio State. Ohio State's a team that routinely recruits really, really well. Notre Dame also recruits really well, but they've also benefited from the transfer portal, right? Look at quarterback Sam Hartman. I mentioned Florida State, right? They're about to play Clemson, and for whatever reason, Dabo's like, I'm not doing the portal. I think he might after this week, right? Because I think we're all in agreement that Florida State's a pretty good team. And then obviously you mentioned Colorado, right? I don't think anybody expected them to be 3-0 after 50-plus transfers. Alabama, they had 3 guys off last year's roster transfer to TCU. And they're all, getting pretty significant playing time. I think that's what the transfer portal has ultimately, it leveled the playing field, because it's now, coaches can go into the portal and say, hey, like, you can come over here and play right now, as opposed to waiting your turn at like an Alabama or an LSU or something like that. But then it also allows, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Florida States, the Georgias to kind of, fill gaps in between recruiting cycles. Texas as well. So yeah, I think you're onto something, which is why I'm looking at kind of the first few weeks of this college football season. I'm like, yeah, like, 1, there's a lot more talent across the board. 2, that could make all sorts of weirdness happen, week to week. I think look back at last week, right? Not the greatest slate of games on paper, and then the teams played, and it was like, holy cow, this is amazing, right? Colorado over Colorado State at 2 a.m. There was Alabama, USF, South Carolina was up 14-3 on Georgia. They've got a transfer quarterback. Like, there was just so much that goes on And I think the transfer portal and, NIL may be part of that as well has had something to do with just the way that the talent is dispersed now across the country.
All right. So what aspect of the Tide look better than what you all expected so far of this season?
I'm encouraged by the receivers. And they've got a stable of receivers. Like there's quite a bit of talent in that room. When you look at Jermaine Burton, you look at Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice has done really well in spots. Malik Benson, the junior college transfer. One of the big issues last season was drops. Believe the receivers through 3 games collectively 1 drop from the receiving core. They've had a few, I think as a team, Alabama's got like 5 drops this season, but 2 of them are on the running backs. 2 more of them are on the tight ends. So the receivers as a whole, thumbs up through 3 games so far. And then I think maybe still a little too early to tell, but I like a little bit of what I'm seeing from the defensive line. That was my biggest worry coming into the season, like just the lack of depth on the D line. Just they got a lot of names, but we just don't know if those names can play, right? Like they had really good starters, like probably 4 guys, I think, through the preseason. Now we're starting to see, okay, James Smith is a true freshman. He looks like he's number 5. There's a couple other guys that are starting to emerge a little bit as that 6th, 7th guy. They might, I don't know that they're going to have the full defensive line rotation ready by this week. But I think down the line, we're starting to see kind of what that rotation might look like, which is good because that's, the way Alabama's played defense, you need a pretty deep defensive line rotation. So early returns there are pretty strong as well. So I'll give you those 2 answers: receivers because of the lack of drops, and then also D line. Just you can see where the depth is maybe going to come from.
All right, so I think we're ready to get into the game itself, and Mike constructed this beautiful next question, so I'm actually going to submit this one over to him. Mike, you're muted.
This is like the 3rd time I've done it today after never doing it before. All right. So Alabama hosts former assistant Lane Kiffin in the Ole Miss Rebel Bear Sharks. Bama at the time I wrote this is a 7-point favorite. I don't think that's changed yet. Kickoff 3:30 on CBS. So first question with that. Pete Golding makes his triumphant return to Tuscaloosa as Ole Miss defensive coordinator. The Ole Miss defense ranks 39th in FBS with 16.7 points per game, or points allowed per game. How do you expect Alabama to attack his defense?
In a perfect world, they'll run the ball, right? And they'll run it effectively, and they'll run it, 60-40 probably. I don't know if they're going to do that exactly, but I know that that's what Saban wants to do. He wants to run the ball effectively. He wants to have a strong play action pass game, and then drop back and throw deep when they need to. With Milroe back in the mix, I'd like to see them mix in some design quarterback runs. He's been really effective there through this season. A lot of it has really been on scrambles when the play breaks down and he just kind of tucks the ball and goes, because he's going to be the fastest dude on the field 95% of the games he plays in. But when it comes to also designed runs, he's been very effective there as well. I think, he's got a handful of explosive run plays, which, 10 plus yards down the field when the play call is actually a designed run. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. They're probably going to try and establish the run early. That's just kind of been the MO through the first couple of games. They've started to add a few more small wrinkles here and there. Like they've mixed in some 21 personnel, right? 2 running backs on the field. So that forces the defense to make a decision. Do we, Roydell or Chase McClellan? They've done a lot of 12 personnel too, especially last week against South Florida, just kind of bringing in bigger bodies with 2 tight ends so that they can run the ball a little bit more effectively. I think they'll probably try to lean on that a little bit more too. So, it's typical Alabama, and especially in a weird year like this, Nick Saban feels like he's got the personnel that they want to try and harken back to those, 12, 13, 14, 15 teams, right, where they pound the rock and, don't ask too much of the quarterback. But, given Milroe's skill set, I think they'd like to try and mix him into that game plan a little bit. But expect a heavy dose of them trying to run the ball. And, I wouldn't be shocked if they try to have Milroe throw it deep too, because he's been really good with the deep ball through the first few games of the season.
Yeah, really, he's pretty much boom or bust. It's he struggles with that short to intermediate stuff, and then he'll struggle with that, and then hit a 40, 50 yard bomb no problem. It's been I'm sure for again Bama fans it's maddening to see, but you know is what it is at this point.
Home runs and strikeouts. That's
Yep.
that's kind
Mhm.
of that's what they were against Texas for sure, and
Yeah.
they struck out a few too many times. But Ole Miss is not quite Texas. At least the defensive front is probably not going to be as big and as nasty as Texas. And I wonder if I wonder how Alabama will try to exploit that a little bit. I'm sure they'll try and stick to their base identity as much as possible, but it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens because I know Pete likes to put pressure on the opposing offenses, and I'm sure he watched South Florida use all sorts of speed and pre-snap looks, this, that, and the next that confused Alabama's offensive line. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him try a bunch of that stuff too.
Mhm.
And you did our segue for us because our next question is about Pete Golding making his return to Tuscaloosa as the Ole Miss DC. The Ole Miss defense actually ranks 39th in.
Oh, we did that one.
Oh, oh, good lord. Did I zone out? Sorry, guys. I have a lot of head injuries. Um,
No, but that one other question about Pete Golding though. Do you think Bama fans are too hard on him?
Yes.
Okay.
I was also, I'm only 5 months onto the beat, right? So I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
here for the previous 5 years. So I can couch it with that. But, like you look at the stats from the last few years and it's like, I mean, Alabama was, second, third in total defense, second, third in points allowed. Like they were a team that routinely put pressure on opposing offenses. Like they were not bad by any means, but you look at the fan base and you understand what fan base we're talking about, and it's like, okay, yeah, Alabama's not used to second, third, or fourth. They're used to being first. They're used to having the
Mhm.
best defense. They're used to leading the SEC in this, that, and the next. And because Pete Golding didn't do that. And, I think the other thing too, you look at, the two games they lost last year, for example, LSU and Tennessee, right? The Tennessee game, it was kind of weird watching the secondary get beat regularly in that game over and over by the same thing, right? Like it was a lot of pre-snap motion into a stack alignment, and that really kind of confused the secondary or the corner and the safety, and they weren't sure who they were supposed to cover, and that just created all sorts of issues. And Jalen Hyatt's too fast, and if you're not able to solve those issues after the snap quickly, Hyatt's down the field gone, right? Similar thing with LSU. That one was a little bit more rock fighty, but the fact that they just, they got beat in that game, they felt like they had to blame somebody, and they allowed 34 points or whatever it was. So let's blame Pete. So I don't know that he got a fair shake. I thought he did a good job just based on the numbers. That said, I also wasn't here all 5 years of it, so I that's one man's perspective, right?
hmm That was one of the reasons why I was so high on Ole Miss going into the season was Pete Golding because I like you said I thought Alabama fans were way too hard on him. Yeah, he wasn't Kirby Smart necessarily, but they weren't bad like you said. Like they weren't first necessarily, but top five, top 10 defense isn't nothing to sneeze at. So I thought that was a huge get for them, and obviously he's going to have his work cut out for him on Saturday. So we'll see how big of a get that really is.
I do apologize, Cody. I really I promise you I do have a lot of head injuries and don't always hold my concentration well. So the Ole Miss offense ranks fourth in FBS, averaging 52.7 points per game. Jackson Dart has been playing really well, albeit against non-SEC competition, and kind of the opposite of what he did down the stretch last season, averaging over 300 yards passing per game, and is also the team's leading rusher with 213 yards. With Quinshawn Judkins struggling so far into the season, which is a huge surprise, especially for me because he was my first round pick in our college draft. Um, so, what does Nick Saban and Kevin Steele, or allegedly Tavares Robinson, who has been allegedly calling plays, need to do to avoid a shootout with Lane Kiffin?
I love that you brought up the that was Lane being Lane, man. Like it's asserting that Travaris Robinson's calling the plays. I think he's more relaying the plays because right, Kevin Steele's calling the game from the booth, and Robinson's down on the field, so it's a communication thing.
Mhm.
But that's still funny. Um, No, what do they have to do? Alabama's defense is predicated on getting pressure on the quarterback, right? Um, so you got to get pressure on him, but you got to be pretty smart about it, right? Because I think what Jackson Dart showed in the Georgia Tech game, right? He rushed for over 100 yards that game. Um, he can be a dual threat if you need him to be a dual threat, and that's pretty important for Ole Miss, right? Because like you mentioned, Quinshaw Junkins, who's an Alabama native, by the way, from Pike Road, which is more closer to Auburn, but Alabama did not offer him in high school, so that's another interesting subplot. But he's been hurt, right? So where is Ole Miss has another running back, Ulysses Bentley. He's effective, right? He's another guy that Lane will find ways to get him favorable matchups. But if Judkins still isn't 100% by Saturday, a lot of the offense is going to flow through Jackson Dart, and he showed that he can be a dual threat guy if you need him to. So what makes that matchup particularly interesting to me is, like, obviously you want to get pressure on Jackson Dart, but if you're a little too aggressive, what Alabama showed against South Florida is that if you are a little bit too aggressive, mobile quarterbacks can take advantage of that, right?
Third and a mile,
Say it again.
Oh no, sorry. We just had an audio mix up, and something started playing in the background.
Oh, I got you. Anyway, yeah, Jackson Dart being dual threat. One thing that I saw from Alabama's defense against South Florida, Byron Brown, their freshman quarterback, he was able to escape the pocket a few times and get some, pretty long scrambles downfield, right? He was able to escape, find some rushing lanes, and take off downfield. If Alabama's not careful, Jackson Dart can do that as well. That could extend some drives for Ole Miss. That could be another element of the game that maybe Lane Kiffin tries to scheme into the offensive game plan, especially if, Alabama's been pretty good at containing the run. They held Texas to 105 yards. They held Middle Tennessee State to like 80 or something like that. And they would have held South Florida to significantly less than that. But Byron Brown was able to escape the pocket a few times on those pressures and race downfield. I think he had, 4 or 5 pretty explosive runs. So Alabama's got to be careful of that. So it's, what's the right mix of contain and pass rush? Because you want to disrupt Jackson Dart's timing. You want to disrupt his rhythm. You obviously want to get him on the ground. But if you're a little too aggressive, he can slip out of the pocket and potentially, race downfields for some crucial rushing yards. So that'll be kind of that's an interesting challenge that I know I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Alabama's front seven against, Jackson Dart's playmaking ability. And that could go a long way in deciding how this game goes. Because if you're able to disrupt him a little bit and put him on the ground, that's going to throw a wrench into a lot of what Ole Miss is trying to do. If he's able to escape and get those, rushing yards downfield, extend plays, extend drives, it could be a long day for Alabama because that Ole Miss offense is dangerous even without all of their weapons fully healthy.
All right, so kind of last game-related question. So besides Jalen Milroe, what other Bama players have to step up in this game to avoid having the Tide go 2-2 to start the season?
Yeah, well, let's stay right there in Alabama's front seven. I think this could be a pretty big Deontay Lawson game. Middle linebacker, sophomore, same age as Milroe. They came in the same recruiting class. He's been very good through the first few weeks. Leads the team in tackles. He plays really fast. He's kind of, the prototypical middle linebacker that Saban seeks for his defenses. He's the guy that's going to call, everything for the front seven. Which is going to be crucial against Ole Miss, right? I mean, he's going to be in charge of, what does a pass rush or pass contain look like? He's probably going to be the guy that's going to have to lay the hits on Jackson Dart so that he doesn't, escape the pocket and go rush for those yards that'll extend plays and drives. So could be a pretty big Deontay Lawson game. Obviously, he's going to be charged with stopping the run if Judkins is good to go, Judkins or Bentley. But yeah, I think defensively, looking for a big Deontay Lawson game. At the same time in the secondary, one thing that Steve Sarkisian was able to exploit when Texas beat Alabama was true freshman safety Caleb Downs. He was able to kind of, especially late third, fourth quarter, he was able to kind of get a lot of matchups there with some pre-snap motion, that forced Caleb Downs to make a few decisions, and he bet on Downs making the wrong decision, which is what led to a lot of those long pass plays to, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Lane Kiffin try to get his receivers into favorable matchups as well and try to put, Caleb Downs into a tricky situation too. So, I would expect if Alabama's going to win this game defensively, they're going to need a big game from Deontay Lawson and probably a big game from Caleb Downs too, at least in the defensive side.
All right, if you have another couple of minutes, we're going to ask you to pick some games. It's not, we're going to give you the spread, the over under. You don't have to pick that. It's just kind of a fun thing that we like to do with the guests on the show. First game
Absolutely.
up, Florida State, 2.5-point favorites going to the fake Death Valley in Clemson, over under 55.5. What do you have on this one?
Ooh, I think, man, I know that they looked a little shaky against BC last week, but I'm going to take the Seminoles going to little old Clemson and knocking the big ACC bully off the block. I really like that Florida State team this year, man. They look explosive. They look and play like an SEC team. Let's call it what it is. Norvell's done a really good job mixing portal additions with strong recruiting. I like Florida State in that matchup.
Next one, Ohio State is somehow a 3-point favorite going to South Bend, playing Notre Dame, over under 55.5.
Ooh, I'm going to sip the Notre Dame Kool-Aid here. I think there's a little too much that Ohio State hasn't solved yet, particularly on offense. I'm just not 100% sold. I think it'll be a close game because I think that Ohio State defense is really good, but I trust Sam Hartman to figure this out and for Notre Dame to get they got some other big games coming up later this season, but I think that's a monster win for Notre Dame on Saturday night over Ohio State.
As a Georgia show, we have to ask this question. Georgia's 42-point favorites at home against UAB, over under 54.5.
I don't know if they'll cover because that's a tall ask, and Trent Dilfer's the coach at UAB. But I think I like Georgia in that matchup.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page there. I personally do not take any spread that's over 4 possessions because you're just talking insanity there. But yeah,
Hey, Dilfer said playing a night game in an SEC stadium was bigger than the Super Bowl. So no disrespect toward the dogs in Athens.
Honestly, he might be right with that comment just because of how corporate the Super Bowl has become. I think I'd rather take a rowdy college crowd over, $1,000 nosebleed seats that only the rich of the rich people are going to buy anyway. Mm-hmm. He might be right there, but no, I agree. Like that's a huge line. I don't know if I trust it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're telling me I have the opportunity to watch some CEOs not pay attention to the game, or I can get 93,000 drunk people in a stadium at the same time? I'm taking 93,000 drunk people.
Yeah.
Bingo.
All right. Last game. It's what we've been talking about so far. And just a little pre-story here. Since 1988, Ole Miss has only won twice in Tuscaloosa. 1988 and then 2015 with Swag Kelly and Hugh Freeze. Alabama is favored 7 points at home, over under 55.5.
Oh, man. So this bit me in the butt against Texas. I thought Alabama would come out ready to go that game, and they did for about 3 quarters, and then just the wheels fell off. I think they get the job done. I think it'll be somewhere in the ballpark of like 24-21 or 27-24, something goofy like that. But I think Saban rallies the troops. I think Milroe brings a little bit of juice. I think he's learned his lesson after being put in timeout for the USF game, and I think Alabama comes out and gets this done, and Lane Kiffin will have to tuck tail and find a new Taylor Swift song to tweet about.
All right. We want to thank you again for coming on and talking to us tonight. I think we both learned a lot. I know I'm personally questioning what I said, what I was thinking before the game, or before we came on and talked. So once again, thank you for coming on and talking to us. If you want to plug your socials for the listeners, now's your time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me. I know that sometimes when, you ask open-ended questions, and even when you ask closed questions, sometimes I can get on a ramble and just, roll a little bit like that. But yeah, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever the hell we call it now, just at Cody Goodwin. You can read all of our stuff at Bama 247. We got a really good team doing some really good stuff there, covering the Crimson Tide this season. So that's part of the 247 Sports Network. If you guys subscribe now, You get your first month for $1 and then only $10 a month for every month thereafter. You can do it for the Georgia website. You can do it for the Ole Miss website. You can do it for the Alabama website, whatever your team is. But especially for those of you who are listening who are Alabama fans, be sure to check out Bama 247. And that's mostly it. So I'm looking forward to a really fun game on Saturday. I appreciate you guys having me on. Just talking about it gets me kind of excited and amped, and I think it'll be a good one in Tuscaloosa. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I think we're excited as well. I'm sadly going to be on the road for most of the day, but I may have my wife drive so I can watch football on the phone.
It just means more.
It just means everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know you're driving, so if you want to get out of here, you are more than welcome to. We're going to talk about some more games and close it out here in a little bit. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm going to be honest, man. I'm really embarrassed that I zoned out for a minute. I 100% thought you asked a question before. And,
No, it's all good.
and the
No
thing
worries.
is, I have had maybe one pour of liquor. So it's not like I'm drunk. I just brain shut off, and then it was like, come back, wrong spot. I'm terribly embarrassed if I'm being 100% honest with you, man.
No, I thought you were going with the Pete Golden question, so I was letting you roll, and then once I realized it wasn't, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, no,
But it's all good.
Oh man, I don't. Y'all, I can't even explain how embarrassed I am about that because that's not. I do my best to not be stupid.
I wouldn't feel too bad. There was times, I think at least 2 or 3 times where like, I'll be reading the outline and I'll see my name and they're like Mike, and then like read the rest of it. So, whatever's on the teleprompter, I'm just gonna read. I'm like Ron Burgundy in that sense, but it's all good. It's late.
It is late.
All right, everyone, this Saturday.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into this Georgia game. As we talked about a minute ago, Georgia 42-point favorites at home against UAB, over under 54.5. Look, guys, at this point, I don't really think any of us have a reason to believe that Georgia's going to come out swinging or slinging the ball deep. I know we all want it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I want it. Pretty sure if you listen to the show, you want Georgia to get 400 yards passing on 8 plays. Like, I think that would just be awesome for everybody. I don't think it's going to happen.
No. Mm-hmm.
I will say, you want to know what's great about Georgia's lack of an explosive offense?
Lots of coaching moments or opportunities.
Yes, but UAB has played North Carolina A&T, Georgia Southern, and Louisiana Raging Cajun so far this season, and have given up an average of 190 rushing yards per game. That means 2 things. Their defensive line, not great, giving up an average of 5.38 yards per carry. And their secondary has not been tested so far. Through 3 games, there have only been 80 attempted passes on this secondary through these 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Georgia covers. I'm just throwing it out there. I go ahead and put it down in the dot.
I'm taking UAB to cover.
I'm taking UAB to cover because it's 42.
I mean, the offense hasn't come close. Well, I guess they have, but like on a consistent basis, coming close to scoring 42 points on their own. I mean, with the over-under being 54.5. I mean, it's kind of twofold. Like, do you think Georgia's going to score close to 50 points? Because, like, defensively, they're probably not going to allow more than a touchdown.
Yeah.
So
that's really what it's come to. I'm not touching the over/under.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this game's going to be quick. Start at 7:30. It'll be over well before 10:30 because Georgia's just gonna run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, fun over/under here. 22 passes attempted.
For Georgia?
Yes.
I'm going to go over, but it's not going to be significantly more than that. I mean, if Carson or, any combination of the guys threw, 23 passes, I don't think that's not really too ridiculous, especially if they run the ball, as much as we think they're going to do it. So I'll go over. I'd like to see that too, but
I
yeah,
I
it's
know
not too
we
many.
all would, but
Yeah.
I mean, just so to emphasize how bad this UAB defensive line is, they have 9 sacks this season. It's more than Georgia. Cool.
hmm Yeah.
They got 6 of those sacks against FCS not great team North Carolina A&T.
hmm
They have 3 sacks in their last 2 games, in which they played Georgia Southern, who gives up a lot of sacks,
hmm
and Louisiana. So I think Georgia's going to attack the bejesus out of this defensive line. I
hmm
think this is the game where the offensive line is going to look phenomenal.
Yeah.
I I think you
Have
and I
to.
could play
They better.
offensive line in this game and look phenomenal. I
hmm
just I think it's going to be quick. I think it's going to be. I'll even throw a score prediction out there. I'm going to say 38-3.
38-3.
I'm
I'll,
not I'm not officially taking the under,
mhm.
but I don't think 38-3 is out of the question. Just because I don't think there's
No.
going to be enough time to score points.
hmm Yeah, and again, it's tough to necessarily get up for this game, considering, I mean, again, the home
If
schedule
it's
has
tough
not
to
been
get up
great.
at 7:30 p.m., there's a problem.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But I mean, considering the opponent now, there was some rumblings, and we always fall into this trap all the time about like black jerseys and stuff like that. But I think the equipment team put out an Instagram post with like some song in the background, or like tagged in it with like I can't remember what group it was, but like with black in the name. So like immediately
We
everyone's like,
did
oh, they're
this
wearing black
all
jerseys.
last season.
Yeah.
If you've seen the new Spider-Man movie,
hmm
you know the one with Tom Holland that came out last winter.
hmm
What's the quote? If you never expect anything good, you'll never be disappointed. That's the point I'm at with the black jerseys.
Just always have low expectations
Yeah, yeah.
or
If your
no
expectations are
expectations.
low, it's hard to get under
Yeah. It's a good point. That's the motto I've lived by my entire life.
them.
But no, I'm with you there with UAB covering this again. 42 points is a lot for anyone to to win by, regardless of who you're playing. Over under, I'm not even confident with that either. I'm going to leave that by itself. But again, I mean, I'm thinking like 31-3. I mean, it's not. I'm sorry, 31-7. I think they'll end up scoring a touchdown in garbage time because that seems to be what ends up happening more often than not. So not official, not putting that in any graphic or anything like that, but just for gigs.
Yeah, man, I
I
want
want
them
to be
to be
wrong
confident.
so I want to be wrong so bad. I want this to be a
Yes,
blowout and fun to watch and what we've come to expect the
give
last
me
2 years.
Stetson versus UAB 2 years ago.
Yes.
Like, give
I'm
me two
curious.
play touchdown drives.
hmm Do it.
It,
Oh my God.
inject it into my veins.
hmm
Like, I try my best to be right about most of my picks. When it comes to Georgia not covering 42 and saying they hit the under unofficially, I
hmm
want to be dead wrong.
Yeah. I would take no greater joy than to be wrong on that. I'm with
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Now, I think Lincoln's over his love of UAB because he hasn't really mentioned them lately as a destination to play after his Pee Wee career is over.
Is he still on his Cincinnati Bengals love?
No, I mean
Okay.
he's all Packers. He was just doing that to troll us in that Rams Bengals Super Bowl, I think. Although he did cry in the whole way home after the Bengals lost over a team he didn't know anything about going into that game.
Well, if he's a Packers fan, he wasn't very happy when they lost by 1 point to the
No.
Falcons last week.
Detroit will avenge the Packers, show them how. Hopefully, I don't know. Detroit has a lot of injuries, but that's the topic for another day.
All right, next game, Florida State, 2.5 point favorite, going to the fake Death Valley, Clemson over under 55 and a half. Fun fact here, this game is the first time Clemson has been a home dog since Lamar Jackson came into the fake Death Valley in
Oh,
2016.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Clemson's been a home dog. They did end up winning that game against Lamar Jackson in an overtime thriller.
Hmm.
Might have been end of regular time. It was a late win for Clemson.
Hmm.
So last week, Florida State was in a battle with the same Boston College team that lost to Holy Cross 2 weeks ago, while Clemson, on the other hand, has beaten the teams not named Duke this season by an average of 41.5 points.
Hmm.
The problem is, I do not have any faith in this Clemson team versus real opponents, but last week, Florida State gave me a reason to question if they'll run away with this game like I had thought 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
I mean, if you want to look at statistically, take out quality of opponent, Clemson should be favored to win this game. They have a better total defense, better rushing offense, better rushing defense, better red zone defense. But these two teams are actually tied in turnover margin.
Ooh.
Shockingly, considering how many times Cade Klubnik has turned the ball over this season.
Hmm.
With all of that said, and disagreeing with all of the guys on Tybee, especially my buddy Frank, who I spent a lot of time today talking about this with. I'm not putting money on this game. I think Florida State wins by a lot. I
Ooh. Okay.
just, I have no reason. Clemson has given me no reason this season to believe that they can hang with the same team that made Florida State, or that made LSU look stupid. They
Hmm.
made LSU look like they were a Division II team in that second half.
Yeah.
I think Florida State's going to play up to Clemson, or play above Clemson this
Hmm.
week and get a big win.
Yeah, I'm with you there. As much as I don't want to agree on everything, I think we're going to have the same point of view on a lot of this. I'm on the Florida State bandwagon. I don't know if they'll necessarily blow them out, but I mean, just getting 2.5 just for Florida State to win by a field goal, I think is definitely a good play there. Like I said, I probably wouldn't put money on this because again, I could see Clemson pulling off an upset, not necessarily blowing them out, but um, I mean, they could win. Of course, it's in Death Valley, but with Florida State, how well they've been playing, 2.5 is not that big of a number for them to win by, just win by a field goal. So I'm going to go with Florida State there. Not feeling confident about the over under on that.
No.
Um, Considering how bad the offensive line is for Clemson, I don't think Florida State's going to put up 38 or anything like that, and so I don't know. It's tough, but I'm gonna leave the over under by itself and just take Florida State the minus 2.5.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on the over under. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah,
You know what's
either
Go ahead.
side wouldn't surprise me. I said either side wouldn't surprise me in the least if it's like a game in like 21-17 type deal, or it was way over like 35-38 or something like that. Like I mean either one's in play. Now the latter is probably not as likely, but I mean if it were to happen, why not? I mean that would be a win for everybody.
Yeah. It's wild how much things can change in just a few weeks, because if I'd have told you right after that LSU Florida State game that one of the teams in this game were not going to be ranked, you'd have called me a liar.
Right.
And even though Clemson is 2-1 right now, the fact that they've dropped all the way out of the rankings is just insane.
They should be ranked. I mean, even if it's like 20 to 25, like
I don't
I don't
know.
think I don't know.
I
They're not. I don't think they're as bad as like someone like Iowa. Like I'm not. I mean, I know Iowa's defense,
Okay,
statistically is good,
Iowa
but
should not be ranked.
no,
Point
that's
blank period.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
But I also don't think Clemson's earned to be ranked right now. I mean, between
Yeah.
how poorly Cade Klubnik's played, the offensive line is as porous as a pumice stone,
Hmm.
and he's had 2 or 3 pick 6s on the season and more interceptions. I mean, he threw a pick 6 in the first quarter against Charleston Southern.
Yeah. That was tough. Yeah, there was a time where
That's
we were saying Charleston Southern might be the best team in South Carolina.
some people are saying.
Hmm.
Some are saying.
Maybe not anymore because that ended up being a blowout. But for a brief time, they were.
Hmm. All right. Ole Miss, or Ole Miss, as
Ole
Mike
Miss.
likes to call
Yeah.
them, at Alabama. Alabama is still a 7-point favorite. Over under 55.5. A lot of triple fives in these over unders this week.
Triples are better.
I mean, Georgia's 54.5, Florida State's 55.5, Ole Miss 55.5, Ohio State, Notre Dame 55.5. Vegas, do you have a problem?
Yeah, and I checked this like this morning too, and like it hadn't changed like very much. I think there might have been a point difference in one of them, but like it's all been the same all week.
That's wild. Um,
Or with BetUS. I don't know about other sports books, but the only one worthwhile hasn't changed very much.
Correct. So, to me, this game entirely comes down to how well Jalen Milroe plays. If we see explosive Jalen Milroe like we saw during the Middle Tennessee game, at times during the Texas game, I think this is a close game.
Mm-hmm.
I, even though I wouldn't call him good, he is by far their best option. He is light years ahead of the other two guys for what the rest of that team is. If you give me a good offensive line,
Mm-hmm.
I think Ty Simpson's a better long term option, but considering what they have, Jalen Milroe is absolutely the answer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think Nick Saban wants to make a statement with how poorly the entire team played last week. I mean, the defense did well. They still gave up some points to USF. But the problem is Ole Miss has only played poorly for 2 quarters of the entire season so far. And that's in a game that they still won by 2 possessions.
Yep.
I don't really think that the environment of Bryant-Denny Stadium will have a huge effect on this game. They've already been in a tough road environment this year, and you can say that Tulane wasn't a tough road environment, but when the commentators are having to raise their voice over the crowd noise, that's loud.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how big the stadium is. Hell, an 11 a.m. kickoff in New Orleans, you're probably getting people that are still drunk from last night walking from Bourbon Street to the stadium.
Right. They haven't stopped drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that if I went to a Tulane game at 11 a.m., that's exactly what I would be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think Ole Miss not only covers, I think they win
Outright.
outright. So you
Ooh.
can put me down for Ole Miss cover, Ole Miss money line. I'm not touching the over under because the last time I did that on an Alabama game, I lost
Mhm.
by not a lot, and it kind of pissed me off.
Yeah. All right. So I'm with you on the Ole Miss covering this game. Again, 7 points. Even I do think they're going to win. I'm not going to say it officially because I don't know why. I want to be a little bit different.
Oh, don't be a little baby.
Little baby.
If you think it, say it.
You know what? Fuck it. I'll
Let's
go. I'll go money line too.
go.
Why not? You
Let's
know what?
go.
I mean, we're again red solo cups, pastel colors, all the way to Atlanta for the rematch. Ole Miss and Georgia in the
You
SEC
better dust
championship.
them Sperry's off, bro.
I'm ready. I'm gonna get my Bama bangs going. It's gonna look like a lollipop that you drop behind the seat and has hair all stray hairs all over it. But I'm gonna do it. I'm ready. Put my visor too. Good to go. But yeah, I'll go Ole Miss. Spread and money line there. And you know what? I'm gonna go over too, over that 55.5. I think Bama's gonna
Ooh.
score as well. I mean, Jalen Milroe, again, for all the faults that we talked about with Cody, boomer bust, I like what he said better. It's all home runs or strikeouts. He can hit the deep ball. We obviously saw that against Ole Miss, not Ole Miss, against Texas and Middle Tennessee State, and he'll be able to do that. He'll get his in this game, but I think Ole Miss is going to be too much for them. So again, Ole Miss covers, win outright over that 55.5. It's gonna be a party. Celebrate Swag Kelly just like how he would have wanted.
Love it. Let's go.
Yeah,
All right.
ready.
Next game we're talking about, that's Ohio State, who, like I said earlier, somehow, some way, are 3-point favorites in South Bend at Notre Dame, over under 55.5. So Notre Dame has played better competition this season with playing Navy and NC State in the first 2 weeks of the season and looking like contenders, blowing both of those teams out, while Ohio State has played the powerhouses of Indiana, Youngstown State, and Western Kentucky, and only really looking decent against Western Kentucky. The offense, not put together. It's odd the parallels that you can draw between Ohio State and Georgia so far into the season. As much as I think we all hate to admit that.
Yeah.
And even in the Western Kentucky game, Ohio State relied almost entirely on Marvin Harrison Jr., who had almost 200 receiving yards during the game. Notre Dame, on the other hand, third in passing yards allowed, which is kind of skewed by the triple option Navy team in week 0. But if you were to take that game out, they would still have an average that puts them at 11th in passing
Ooh.
defense for yards per game allowed.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if you like passing, if you like joyful football, don't watch this game. This is going to be a juggernaut matchup almost entirely on the ground. I will say that I do like that this game is at Notre Dame. I think that it gives them an edge as long as they learn from previous games and actually fill up their own stadium and don't sell the tickets to other people.
Yeah.
I have little to no faith in Kyle McCord against a good team because he hasn't played one yet and he only looked good in one of the games.
Yeah.
But I have all the faith in Sam Hartman. I do not understand how anybody could doubt Sam Hartman at this point. So give me Notre Dame to cover and win. Put me on the line for the money line, for the cover, and, that's so Raven moment here. Notre Dame and Ohio State switch spots in the top 10 to move up to number 6 after beating Ohio State.
Ooh, I love it. Love it. So I'm again gonna agree with you on that. I'm gonna take Notre Dame. It's about time they win a big game in South Bend. I think the last like really big game they had at home was in 2020 against Clemson. DJ Uiagalelei. There we go. Uiagalelei. DJ, who's doing pretty well out there at Oregon State. But again, names aren't really my thing. I struggle. Call me Gary.
I was about to say
it. Both again, as we've recently learned, both Midwest guys, and both can't say names, can't pronounce anything.
Wait, I've never seen you and Gary Danielson in the same room. Are you the same person?
No comment.
Ooh.
No. Same thing. Yeah, man. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Notre Dame there. I mean, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go money line too. Why the hell not?
So
And
if we're wrong this week, we are wrong.
We're all the same records. This is make my job easier putting it together. Not that it was that hard, but yeah, I'll go money line there. But you know what? I'm gonna add in the over there as well because I want to see high scoring. Marvin Harrison being healthy will be Well, it'd be something as an Ohio State's athletic director said, I think yesterday, that if they would have let him play, they would have won. Which again, 267 days later or whatever, they're still bitching about that game.
You can't win this year if you're still talking about how you could have won last year.
Right. hmm Because they know they can't win this year with McCord at quarterback because they're going to lose at Notre Dame and screw up any chance they have of making it back to the playoff because they're going to lose against
Especially when they
Michigan as well.
three-peat a loss to Michigan.
Yeah.
No two lost teams ever made the playoff.
hmm If there if there's a team, it could be them, but with the losses that they'll end up having, there's no way.
No way.
No way.
All right, now we're moving on to another team that I think could make the playoff this year, and it is the home team in this, Cal at Washington, who are 21-point favorites. Over under set at 59.5. And I didn't do a stat deep dive on this one. I didn't even do a shallow dive. If I'm being honest, I didn't scratch the surface because I don't care. Washington money line with how bad Cal
Ooh.
is. Go ahead and give me the spread.
Okay.
Give me Washington spread. If you aren't a believer in the Huskies yet, you're wrong.
hmm
Period.
Yeah.
Best team in the Pac-12. They're winning the Pac-12 in its last year of existence. Put me down for it.
You could say that they should be easily a top 5 team. I think they're ranked way too low in the
Absolutely.
AP.
Absolutely.
You could argue top 3, and I wouldn't be mad.
I think this isn't even a game we're talking about just because, we're kind of running out of time here. But
Yeah.
if Oregon blows out Colorado this weekend, top 5?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you talking about Oregon?
Yeah.
Uh, what are they? They're 10th right now, right?
I'm about
I
to
think
look
they're
it up.
10th.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
They would have a blowout win against a ranked opponent. They're currently 10th.
hmm
If they have a 21 plus point win against Colorado, who's everybody's darling right now,
Yeah.
they would have a 21-point win over the number 19 team in the country.
But they don't have Travis Hunter.
They don't have Travis Hunter, but the AP poll typically doesn't really give much of a grace for injuries.
That's fair. I don't know. That's a big jump. Well, I guess it depends on who loses in front of them, right? I mean, if Florida State loses, that definitely leaves room in the top 5. Not that we think that's going to happen, but
No. No. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know. But I think it'd be very interesting, especially considering that Cal and Oregon do play this year and it's all going to play itself out on the field.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so your bandwagon team.
Oh God. Okay, so Texas Tech a 6-point favorite at West Virginia. And again, I didn't really do too deep of a dive on this because West Virginia did pull out a decent win against Pitt. I mean, Pitt's not very good either, but
Eat
they
shit
did,
Pitt.
yeah, eat shit Pitt. But again, Texas Tech a 6-point favorite. Again, it's not out of the like a possibility out of the realm of possibility that they win by a blowout. So again, even 6 seems a little bit low. Again, I know they're going to Morgantown. They're going to cue country roads as much as they can because that's really all they have going for them. But I'm going to go with Texas Tech there. I think they get right, win a Big 12 game, and kind of get right the ship and get ready to play Texas in the Big 12 championship. As long as they kind of keep it how I perceive them to be going into this season. So again, give me Texas Tech that -6.
All right, we're about to dive into best bets here, and Mike, you go first.
All right, so my first one, and this is the best I think I felt about anything that we've done so far through 4 weeks. Maryland's an 8-point favorite going to East Lansing to face the formerly led by Mel Tucker Michigan State Spartans. And a lot of the vibes that I get just from around the program, just listening to alums talking about Michigan State, just kind of eyeballing, just kind of listening to what happened on Peacock when Washington just destroyed Michigan State last week. Because I think Michigan State quit. And it's
Yeah.
giving a lot of vibes similar to Bobby Petrino's last year at Louisville when they were just getting just dismantled. Nobody wanted to be there. Bobby lost the locker room, all that. And Michigan State wasn't going to be very good anyway, but just like not having any direction at all. And these guys, uh, there's nobody on staff worth a damn. I mean, Mark D'Antonio's, corpse is still kind of lingering over there, but even at the end, he sucked. And there's just not talent on this team. There's nothing. Like again, if Tucker would have, not been on the phone and done all the things that he did, still be making that money, and he better give Kenneth Walker a big percentage of that because Kenneth Walker is the only reason why he got that extension, that Jimbo-esque extension there. But again, like I said, Maryland covers, the 8-point spread. They're going to win by 1,000. It's going to be ridiculous.
So, off the wall, wild question. Is there any chance that Michigan State goes after Dion at Colorado like they did Mel Tucker?
It's a pipeline, right?
It's a pipeline. I will
Just
say
like
I'd
throwing it
much
back to
rather
the
live
video
in
game.
Boulder than East Lansing, but
Oh yeah, yeah. No amount, yeah. I keep saying no amount of money. No, there's everybody has a number, but he's got too good of a thing going at Colorado, at least at this time. Michigan State is probably at best like the sixth best Big Ten job. It's the second best Big Ten job in the state. So he has that going for him. Honestly, what I think would be more likely is that they would go after Urban Meyer. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I know as toxic as that's going to be. I may have mentioned this last week. Um, I mean,
I
he's
just got
obviously.
depressed thinking about it.
I mean, it would go along with everything because obviously, I hate Florida. He coached at Florida. I hate Ohio State. He went to Ohio State. Why not go to Michigan's little brother and piss me off there? So, I mean, I could see
You
that
heard it
would be
here
one of the
first.
few.
Urban Meyer actually just hates Mike.
I think that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know why. I didn't do anything to him. I mean, he's from Toledo originally, so I don't know. Maybe just I don't know.
He just hates life. He's from Ohio.
That's fair. That's 100%. He's just a miserable, miserable person. Um, and I mean, the feeling's mutual. I hate him as well. But if he were to go somewhere, anywhere, if Michigan State was desperate enough, and apparently they don't care about, morals or anything like that. They took forever with the Nasser thing and all that. So I mean, if they want to win, I mean, Urban Meyer's that's probably one of the few jobs that would actually, take him. So I'm waiting for that call. It's either going to be him or Narduzzi from Pitt, and Narduzzi doesn't scare anybody. He sucks there too. So anyway, yeah, Maryland, take it. Whatever the number is, take it.
All right, next game. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, what do you have next?
Oh, okay. Okay. My bad. All right. So, all right. So I got a few more here. So Arkansas at LSU. LSU is a 17.5 point favorite. Again, didn't dig like super, super deep into this. I know that Arkansas choked against BYU, the fighting super soakers out there from Provo. And I mean, obviously LSU just kicked the shit out of Mississippi State last week. And I think they keep that going because again, Arkansas has struggled mightily against even teams with like half a pulse. I mean, they haven't looked like that great this year. 17.5. It's in the real Death Valley. I'm going with LSU to cover that 17.5.
We still love you, Sam Pittman.
We do come home. We oh my god! I know he's not going to because he's going to retire. This is his last job, or at least so he says. At Arkansas, he's going to retire out there in the Ozarks. But
Come home, Sam.
we miss you.
Athens needs you.
We miss you, Sam. We miss you.
Wow.
All right. So then going from there, BYU at Kansas. Speaking of the Super Soakers there, I'm taking the over 55 for that game. Oops. And taking the over 55. Sorry. messed up my doc there. I'm taking the over 55 for that game. Both teams have been proven to be able to score. Obviously, BYU again last week against Arkansas, and then I keep throwing it back to Kansas against Arkansas last, in the Liberty Bowl last year, where it was like over 100 total points between the two of them. And even Kansas put up a pretty good score against Illinois, which again isn't the same defense they had last year, but not still not too shabby as well. But I'm gonna go the over 55 for that game. And you know what? I mean, while I'm just throwing all these games out here, just real quick, UNC, so North Carolina's going to Pitt. The over under is 55 and a half. I'm sorry, 50 and a half. I'm taking the over on that. Again, UNC is
Ooh,
gonna,
that's a good call.
yeah, that I was kind of iffy about it for a little bit, but 50 and a half is not. Again, UNC can cover that on their own with Drake May and that offense playing pissed off. But yeah, I'm taking the over on that. For sure. I think it's a 21-point spread, which again, I mean, I'm not going to go that far because again, I don't want to pay too much attention to it. But UNC, I feel good about that going, or the total for both teams going over 50 and a half. And fine, you know
I'm
what?
mad you got to the dock first because you took this game from me that you're about to talk about.
I was iffy about it, but like the last right before we got on, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go with it. So North Carolina State.
Oh, I was talking about the Iowa Penn State.
Oh, you can have that one. I'm not sure about that one anymore.
Oh, that's mine.
Okay. All
Iowa
right. And then
covers
the other one I have.
for Penn State covers 14 and a half at Iowa. Penn State has won me money every week of the season.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not a believer in James Franklin, but I'm not a believer in anything about Iowa.
I think it's just at 14 now, if I'm not mistaken.
I just pulled it up a second ago. No, it's still 14 and a half.
Okay. All right. So you're taking Penn State
Yep.
minus 14.5. All right.
Got it.
Oh, so real quick, the other one I was going to take, and again, not going to dive too deep into it. NC State, 9.5-point favorites at UVA at the University of Virginia. They suck.
Yep.
I mean, they're the worst team in FBS. Worst, it's certainly the worst Power Five team at the very least. And NC State, they've had some blowouts, had some close games. I think I had it written down here too. Yeah, it's more so about UVA. UVA got blown out by 28 points and 36 points against Power Five competition, then lost to James Madison by 1 point, 36-35. NC State, obviously, they did lose to Notre Dame in like that, the really bad weather game because every time Notre Dame plays in Raleigh, it's just the worst weather imaginable.
The
But
game where NC State's brand new scoreboard got struck by lightning and blew out.
that that seems about right. That's awful. I can't even imagine for first big game and just ruin it because I mean all these teams are making new. Like Michigan got a brand new scoreboard or two. Luckily, that didn't happen for them. But I am taking NC State to cover that 9.5 because, again, it's more so not so much a North Carolina State um, commentary as it is just how bad Virginia sucks.
All right, so we're gonna move into my picks. I keep telling myself I'm not gonna pick as many, and then I keep picking as many, so it's 100% my fault. But I'm trying to run through these pretty quick. I have Wisconsin -5 at Purdue. The age of the spoiler makers is over. I was right last week with saying that Syracuse would cover, and I'm right by saying the Badgers are covering the less than a touchdown spread. Purdue is tied for 60th in the country in turnovers, while Wisconsin is tied for 25th in turnovers gained. I think Purdue loses by 2 possessions here. I don't understand the 5 points.
It must know something. Because I thought about that one as well, and that just scared me off. I'm like you said, like immediately, like, oh, Wisconsin's gonna win by 2 possessions easily, and for that to be that low, something's off.
I think everybody just remembers what Purdue did a few years ago and doesn't remember that they have a different coach.
Hmm. Or maybe just even the first half Wisconsin had against Georgia Southern, where they were tied and then they went down by 7 early in the second half.
I don't get me wrong, I wouldn't touch a first half line,
Oh
but
God, no, no.
give me the Dairy Raid offense against
Hmm.
this Purdue team. Next, I've got up Georgia Tech going to play the Demon Deacons at Wake Forest. I'm taking the over 60 here, and this is just based on straight math. Georgia Tech has averaged 35 points per game this season, and Wake Forest has averaged 33.3333333. Neither
Right.
team has a great defense, but both teams have competent offenses. Over 60.
That's a good one. I like that.
Next one, and I am actually very glad that this line dropped between when we wrote this and today. Army going to Syracuse. I'm taking the over 49 and a half.
Ooh, it went that much?
Oh, yeah. It's dropped, 3 points
Mm-hmm.
in the last couple of days. So I really like it now that it's 49 and a half. I think it's pretty straightforward. I have a ton of confidence in the Syracuse offense and a decent amount of confidence in Army's new look, more pass-happy offense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the Army's going to throw for 300 yards, but I think they have enough of a passing game to score, and I think Syracuse is definitely good enough to put up at least 35.
Yeah, I like that too. Dino Babers, shout out him.
I mean, Army gave up 39 points to UTSA with almost no returning production on offense from last season. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me I can get Syracuse that has a very high returning offensive production against that same Army team, and
Mm-hmm.
you're only saying 49 and a half? Over. All day.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Last game is Mississippi State going to Columbia. South Carolina 6.5 point favorites. And it was made very apparent last week that Mississippi State's new offense just doesn't really work with the pieces they have on that team. Put that together with the Rattler-Leggett connection, and it's in Williams-Brice Stadium. I think South Carolina wins by more than 6.5 over here on this one.
All right. Seems safe.
So we are going to do the calling the dogs.
All right, everyone, this Saturday it is the big one. Prime time in Stanford Stadium. The University of Alabama comes to Georgia. So, Nick Saban, I hope you're ready. Hey, Jabroni, don't interrupt me while I'm cutting the promo. I hope you're ready. Wait, what did you just say?
All right. So it'll be in the podcast. It'll be in the YouTube, but Mike cannot hear it, so I'll have to let him know when we're done here. But this is
Okay.
Week 4's Calling the Dogs. Once again, thank you to Caleb Tillman. And if you would like to put yourself in to the Calling the Dogs segment, we are playing every voicemail we get, and that is 678-465-8020. Give us your best WWE promo. Give us your best trash talk. And if you're drunk and obnoxious, like we hope you are after the game, call us, and if you're funny, it'll make it on the recap show. But here's Caleb Tillman's Week 4 Calling the Dogs.
All right, everyone, this Saturday it is the big one. Prime time in Stanford Stadium. The University of Alabama comes to Georgia. So, Nick Saban, I hope you're ready. Hey, Jabroni, don't interrupt me while I'm cutting a promo. I hope you're ready. Wait, what did you just say? What? Like the game is in Birmingham? Oh, well, apparently we're playing the University of Alabama at Birmingham. The Blazers. All right, well, shifting gears, I grew up in a small town just outside of Valdosta, Georgia. Valdosta, Georgia, the home of the greatest college football team to call themselves the Blazers, the Valdosta State Blazers. And you want to know why they're the greatest team to call themselves the Blazers? Because number one, they've actually managed to win national championships. Two, they once had the great Kirby Smart on their staff. And three, and most importantly, they've never had to shut down their football program for a couple of years because they sucked so much. And Mike, I know your son once told me that he was one day going to play for UAB and he was going to beat Georgia while he was there. But guess what? He ain't there now. So dogs all day, baby.
You may want to show Lincoln the Calling the Dog segment because he did get called out.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, for saying that he was going to beat Georgia while he played for UAB.
History's not on his side.
No, can't say it is.
No.
Can't say it is.
Yeah.
Before we close out here tonight, as always, we're going to remind you Instagram at nothing.finder.pod, Twitter at finderpod. Check both of those locations for our ASW giveaway this month.
Don't do threads. It's a barren wasteland. There's nothing there. Like someone like Barrett Salee has like 2 likes on something that he like broke when I just got on there earlier. It was bad.
Yeah, I can't blame him for trying, but not great.
I was the lone comment on there from our page that said, "Brother, this place is dead. Don't bother anymore."
Facebook and YouTube, search us there. This episode will be going up on Facebook or YouTube, not Facebook. I don't think anybody would listen to a whole podcast on Facebook. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Send us a screenshot. We'll send you a sticker. If you'd like to reach out to us via email, say you don't have social media, but you found out about us somehow, that is nothingfinerpod@gmail.com. And as always, guys, remember there is nothing finer in the land
And a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.